Hi, this is Zachary and Elizabeth, and thanks for tuning in to Simply Enough.
If you're liking our podcast, we'd love it if you'd share with your friends and family.
And then rate and review to raise our visibility and spread the message of enoughness.
We love you, and remember, you are simply enough.
Just as you are.
Period. Welcome to Simply Enough, where we celebrate you.
Because you are enough. Just as you are.
Period.
Whatever it is that you think you lack, it's already in you. Well, even the practice of thinking that you have it within you is a practice.
Exactly. That's exactly what I mean about a belief is just a thought that you keep thinking. So practice thinking a different thought.
Baseball hitters get into a slump. That recurring thought becomes a belief, and then suddenly you are in a slump and your past now has infiltrated your present.
Then that becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy, which engenders a belief of truth because of the past of thinking a certain way and believing a certain way and believing not having something. That was almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. With that being a self-fulfilling prophecy, it then becomes construed as truth. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Okay. Hello. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Simply Enough. I'm Mr. Zachary Leonard.
And I'm Dr. Elizabeth Ignacio.
And we're going to kick it off with a story today. So I'm just going to dive right in. I was reflecting, it is the end of the school year, and high school seniors are getting ready to end their high school career. And we have a whole generation of students that are going off to college. And I was reflecting on my college experience, or the beginning of my college experience. And I thought of a story that I think is tied to Simply Enough, and I want to share it today as the launch pad for our conversation. So I went to the University of Notre Dame. I grew up in Southern California. Northern Indiana, big climate difference than Southern California. My mom grew up in Indiana near Notre Dame, and my dad was a big Notre Dame football. So I knew a lot about the sports side of the school. And I also knew it was a strong academic program. But because we were a family of limited resources, we didn't have the money to be able to fly to take tours of prospective schools. In addition, we didn't have a lot of money to apply to a lot of schools. So I had to be very judicious about the schools that I applied to. And they really had to be schools that I wanted to go to, right? So as to not waste the application fee, et cetera.
Yes.
So I got in to the University of Notre Dame and decided that that was where I wanted to go, and never saw the campus. As a high school senior, shopping for schools. So I went with my dad opening, weekend, and got set up and everything. And then I came back the fall around Thanksgiving, and I was spending some time with a high school friend who decided to stay in the Southern California area for college. And this particular friend, he was somewhat amazed. His energy, the entire conversation was amazement. Just, I can't believe you. I don't understand how you did this. You decided to go to this school that's, so far away, and it's a completely different climate, completely different political leaning, and demographically, like the school is largely Caucasian and Catholic. And even though I went to a Catholic high school, I grew up in Southern California, where racial demographics are a lot more varied. And the conversation was just all about my decision to go, and then me actually going. And the general sentiment that my friend was giving me was, I could never do that. I could never take that risk. And he even said things like, I don't have the strength, or I don't have the ability to do that, to go somewhere completely foreign without really seeing it, and to just take that gamble. And, I just thought about that in terms of, we've been talking about confidence recently in previous episodes. We've also been talking about a sense of seeing within yourself what you already have in a different capacity. So I was getting an interesting lens of myself. Like, he was holding up a mirror to me in a way that, either I was going to accept or not. But I hadn't thought about my decision in such a light, right? He was kind of shedding some light on it. And then I was also learning about him. So I want to throw that out there and just dig into it a little bit. this idea of um he was saying to me, like, I don't have, or I'm not this, or I'm not that.
Mhm.
And that really struck me. It really struck me. So I just want to share that.
Well, that's, this whole thing about simply enough is based on a couple of things. One is one's belief about oneself. And all that is, in terms of if one can or cannot do it, is one's belief. And a belief is just a thought that has been thought repeatedly. So it just becomes ingrained in the mind. I mean, that's literal, that's biological. So there's I think it's Hebb's law, neurons that fire together wire together. So if you keep thinking the same thought, it literally gets imprinted on your brain and it becomes almost a reflexive thought, i.e. a belief. And so that belief that he lacks something or covets what you have in terms of your inner resources is simply that. It's simply a belief. It's simply thoughts that he has thought of himself. It doesn't mean it's true. So, I think I've said in another episode where what I tell many of my clients, especially when they kind of push back as I try to kind of, lift them up, and they push back, and they sit in this place of not enoughness, and they sit in this place of less than, which is, I tell them, if you don't believe in yourself, borrow my belief in you. Because that's the only thing that's limiting, is truly a belief. And the beliefs are just the thoughts that you're having. The thoughts are not truth. And if one sits in this mindset of, well, it's true because that's what's happened. That's the story of my life, that, I haven't succeeded here and I haven't done that. That might be truth in what has already happened. That doesn't necessarily have to mean this moment going forward. So another thing that I like to tell my clients is throw in the word yet, meaning I haven't succeeded at that yet. I haven't lost 5 pounds yet. I haven't been great at, weight loss yet. I am not a marathon runner yet. Because it switches your thoughts. And if you keep thinking the same thoughts, that's how they become a belief. And then that belief can become an identity. And what I mean by borrow my belief in you is because I truly do have a belief that we are so much more similar than we are different. And when people look at what I've, quote, accomplished, I don't say this from humility. I say this from true honesty. There is nothing different or special about me. It's not that I have any sort of different capacity. It's what I've tapped into, though. It's the ability to tap into it that might produce different outcomes. Does that make sense?
It does.
I was watching binge watching. I'll be honest. I was binge watching this show on Netflix called How to Get Away with Murder with Viola Davis and Kerry Washington. And it's very well written. And Viola Davis plays this, seemingly strong, powerful attorney professor. But you peel the layers of the strength and the power, and there's a lot of wounds and there's a lot of insecurities. And quite frankly, I identify with her a lot. One thing I didn't identify with her, though, is that she is an alcoholic. And there's a climactic scene where she's actually about to go to the Supreme Court. And for reasons external and outside of this case that she's trying, other things are happening in her life where she has a breakdown, meltdown minutes before she has to speak in front of the Supreme Court. In the meantime, though, she's a recovering alcoholic, and her attorney's license is dependent on her staying sober, and she gets tested for it. And her her partner for this case is trying to get her to kind of, calm down and settle down and get grounded and centered before getting into the Supreme Court. And she said, what do you need? I'll do whatever you need. The partner is. And the partner herself is very strong and self-assured. And Viola Davis says, vodka. I need vodka. And her partner says to the intern, hurry up and go find a bottle of vodka. Oh, wow. And the intern is like, she's a recovering alcoholic. She cannot touch this. This is the last thing that she needs. And her partner says, go get the bottle of vodka. She needs it. She wants it. Go get it. And sure enough, as Viola Davis is still having her breakdown, bottle of vodka comes in, and the partner says, you have whatever you think is in this bottle, you already have in you. But if you think that there is something in this bottle that's going to give you what you need that's not in you, here's the bottle. But I'm telling you, it's already in you. And Viola Davis did not touch the bottle. Because it's all about believing and tapping into the immense God-given blessed resources that are already there. It's almost like it's already been revealed to you. You yourself just have to realize that it's there. Does that
It
make
does.
sense?
So I've got a story to build off that one, a real life example. I'm a huge fitness advocate and avid person. I like to work out. I like to rock climb, as we've talked about on here. But I'm equally invested in my mental health, right? I spend so much time on my physical health, and I feel like spending just as much time on my mental health is as important. And that doesn't necessarily mean just seeing a mental health professional. It means finding time just for me, downtime, alone time, balance, etc. But I do see a therapist. And there was one moment when I was seeing this therapist, I brought something to our session, and he said, okay, well, how did you handle it? Or what did you do? And I said, well, I waited so that I could talk to you about it first. And he just kind of paused and said essentially what you just said, which was, no. You know how to handle it. I am not, this is not where you don't need to come to me, right? I'm not the elixir, so to speak.
Yes.
It's already there. It's already in you. And I realized he was absolutely right. I was thinking of therapy as being the place where I got the vodka, so to speak, to help me get through this moment, or this, when that actually wasn't the case. And he said exactly what you said, which is, it's already in me. It's already there.
It's already there.
I didn't even realize what I was doing, right? And then I also hadn't even believed that about myself. And not that I borrowed his belief in that moment too, right? Because he had that for me in the same way that you're saying, you say, borrow my belief in you. He was giving that to me as well.
Right.
I'll never forget that moment.
In terms of a belief being a thought that you frequently think, and you have control of what you think. So you have control of your beliefs. So, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. If you change how you have a thought about that moment, or about that circumstance, or about that event, or about that situation, and you keep with that thought, that is how you build belief. And another thing to recognize is moments versus past, meaning the past, it's very easy to make generalizations because of what occurred in the past. And then because of what occurred in the past, then that becomes a thought process, and that thought process becomes a belief. And then it almost is a self-perpetuating, self-realizing prophecy. So then it becomes what we believe to be truth, when that's all in the past.
Yep.
And though it might have been truth in the past, we can, for this moment, change our thought. And then each subsequent moment, we can build upon that thought so that the thoughts can then become beliefs. And so another kind of tool that I tell my clients is, like we talked about, using the word yet, meaning it's something that you can build upon, and it's, it's a process and it's a journey. So using the word yet, and then also keeping mindful of the phrase for now or for today. So it gives you yourself space and grace to recognize that whatever happened in the past is in the past. And because of the past, I thought certain ways, which became beliefs, and those beliefs were self-fulfilling prophecies. So then I believed them to be truths. Okay, that's in the past. But now for today or for this moment, I'm going to see it this way, or I'm going to think it this way, or I'm going to tap into the reserves that I thought I didn't have, but for today, I'm going to try, and I'm going to tap into the reserve and see what happens. And it just builds. And so therefore, it doesn't become something that you even have. It's something that you build upon. And what I mean by that is, for example, when we talk about, so the catchphrase of growth mindset, many people now know the catchphrase of growth mindset, and especially relative to Carol Dweck in terms of intelligence. And they get it like, oh, okay, so I get that if you approach a situation with a growth mindset as opposed to a finite capacity of intelligence, that's how not only comfort zones expand, but opportunities expand, and then therefore chances for quote success expand. Well, there's growth mindset in more than just intelligence. It's just that intelligence is talked about the most. That's what people think about, especially because when they are trying as parents and as teachers to teach kids, the growth mindset is a lot about IQ, intelligence, and test outcomes and that kind of thing. But there's also growth mindset. Take, for example, weight loss. The reason why I keep going to weight loss is it's amazing. That is a very common journey with so many people. And so many people have this self-limiting belief of, well, I tried and I failed. And so then they believe that they're failures at weight loss and that they're doomed to never achieve the weight loss that they want. So then often it goes back to, well, I just lack the discipline, as if discipline is something to have. Or, well, look at that guy. He doesn't have the discipline. And now that person is being judged for not having something. Whereas really, it's not about discipline as if you have something. It's just, are you practiced at it? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
It's not about being disciplined. It's about being practiced. So that person isn't disciplined in losing weight, or that's why he's or she's quote failing. It's not that that person isn't disciplined in losing weight. That person just isn't well practiced in losing weight. And so if we approach things that way, that is a growth mindset of, well, I'm just going to keep practicing, for today, saying no to that chocolate chip cookie. And I'm going to practice for today, putting on my running shoes and walking from this street light to that street light. And then tomorrow I'm going to practice a little bit more, as opposed to this commodity of having discipline. Does that help?
It
or
does.
Does that make sense?
It does, because it also speaks to the practice of seeing the capacity within you. Yes. If the limiting beliefs are the running narratives that you hear, and let me use an athletic example. Baseball hitters get into a slump, right? They call it a slump because, and then you're right. Then they start to think when I was a baseball player, every time you go up to bat, I'm going to strike out, or I'm not going to get on base. And then you're right. That recurring thought becomes a belief. And then suddenly you are in a slump, and your past now has infiltrated your present, right?
Yes.
But the idea of the practice of seeing yourself, whatever it is that you think you lack, it's already in you. Well, even the practice of thinking that you have it within you is a practice.
Exactly. That's exactly, yes. That's exactly what I mean about a belief is just a thought that you keep thinking. So practice thinking a different thought. And when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Meaning then that becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy, which engenders a belief of truth.
Mhm.
So because of the past of thinking a certain way and believing a certain way and believing not having something, that was almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. With that being a self-fulfilling prophecy, it then becomes construed as truth. It's not a all-encompassing, pervasive, permanent, ad infinitum truth. It was truth for that moment, or truth for multiple moments in your past. Stop thinking that, stop believing that, recognize that that's the past, but for today, this is your truth. And you might not be where you want to be yet, but you are in the practice of getting there. Alan Watts, he's a philosopher, used to say, we might have talked about this in a previous episode or just in a private conversation between you and I, but there's a boat and the boat has a wake. Does the wake power the boat? And the answer is no, right? The engine at the moment propels the boat forward. Okay, so what is the wake? The wake is just proof of what has happened in the past. The wake is just evidence of where you've been. It doesn't define where you're going.
I have the biggest grin on my face for two reasons. One, I love that you said ad infinitum. Is that what you said?
Ad infinitum, yeah.
Oh my God, I freaking love you. No, but I'm smiling because I've been really thinking about the two themes that we've been hitting on lately, which is casting yourself in the leading role and moving from doormat to standing up. And that just even that practice of saying to yourself, I have the ability in me to stand up. I have the ability in me to stand up. I have the ability to cast myself in the leading role. And it is a practice 276 times. We've said before, that means you just haven't done it 276 times. I'm smiling at all this because there's just such a cohesion to everything that we're talking about. And each time we come back to the central theme of you are simply enough, just as you are, there are these little takeaways that can be used immediately for now and yet. And it's a practice. That just makes me smile because I am the overachiever that wants to go out and I want to do it all right now. And if I don't do it all right now, then, I didn't quote unquote succeed, or there was, it's a practice, and that just gives me a little bit of room to breathe. Right. And also to give myself grace and self-compassion, which we've talked about in previous episodes, and to love myself a little bit more,
Yes.
Which ultimately I think is everything that we're trying to just drive home with Simply Enough. So that's why I have this just like silly grin on my face, because it feels so doable. It also feels like a chance to go back to little Zachary, who started the practice of the limiting beliefs, and break that apart and say, okay, you just haven't practiced drawing. You haven't gotten into the practice of drawing yet. You're not a bad artist, or whatever label I threw on myself, whatever limiting belief I did. And kids do this, and we see it. And I can go back now and stop it in the same way that anybody with children can, or we can even talk to our little selves and say, no, that was in your wake. Your boat's going forward. Keep your eyes there. Anyway, sorry.
And I just, we resonate with each other so much, even in our private conversations, where you say something and I'm like, I can't believe you just said that, because I was just thinking that, because I was just thinking about the, I don't want to use the word strength, but just the self-belief that little kids have. And it's funny, if I may, and by all means disagree, but just semantics wise, how I am with semantics, you said what you placed on yourself, as a little kid about, drawing or whatever beliefs you put on yourself. Yeah. If I may have you consider that I correct that a little bit, because truth be told, what I see, this is how I see it, is it's not that you put that on yourself. It's others put that on you, and you believe that. No, and we do, right. And everybody does that. And the reason why I say that is, no baby is born looking at themselves in the mirror and being like, oh, my nose is too big and I have too much arm fat, and look at my chubby thighs.
Yep.
There is no pretense whatsoever, obviously as an infant, but even as a toddler, like I think we've talked about, I'm going to be the president of the United States. I'm going to be, this, I'm going to be an astronaut, all of these things. That is the natural state, that self-belief and that self-assuredness. And why do we not look at that as arrogance? And we even applaud that and encourage that. But as we get older, there's so much judgment placed of, you didn't do that art well, so you are not. And by the way, what's right or wrong art?
Right.
But I've heard that before. Personal story. But it's the limiting beliefs are learned, and they're learned. They are not inherent. We were not born with those self-limiting beliefs. But when it gets put on us and we think it and then we believe it, and then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and then it becomes truth, then it becomes identity because it's truth, then it becomes insurmountable.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a definition of not having this, not having the capacity, not having the capability, versus a journey, growth mindset of, I'm not blank yet, or I haven't blanked yet. The self-limiting beliefs are learned. And so what it's a matter of now as adults, not only if we are parents or if we are teachers, but for ourselves. That's what we're talking about when we talk about unlearning so much and unpacking so much.
Yeah, I think if you had said to me a year ago, you and your friend Elizabeth are going to have a podcast, I would have stopped you right there and said, you're absolutely out of your mind. And the reason why I would have stopped you is because it would have come with all of the limiting beliefs. I don't have a voice. I don't have stories or ideas that are worth sharing that people would want to listen to. It's all of that is unpacked, and look at where we are now.
And yes, and it's important to celebrate all of the steps, because not everything is a big step. So
right.
Yes, absolutely. It's important that we recognize, applaud, celebrate for our own self-belief and self-worth. I will also say this, and we say it often in the episodes, which is, this is a journey. So this isn't like some degree bestowed upon us from a university where, aha, you've got it now, Elizabeth. Aha, you've got it now, Zachary. No, we still, you and I, go through the practice, right? Of unpacking and unlearning these self-limiting beliefs for the podcast alone, much less other things in our life. So again, it's not like a ta-da, here is the degree of enoughness, and here is the degree of mastery of self-belief. No, it is a practice, and we continue to practice that. And so it's not for somebody to say, I don't have that strength, or I don't have that wherewithal, or I don't have, it's not a commodity. It's not a degree. It's a practice. It's a journey. It's a yet, it's a for today. It's a for the moment. And you add it up and you'll see the journey veer in a particular direction. So it helps corroborate the positive beliefs versus corroborating the negative beliefs, which we have come to believe is true. It's getting back to being that child pre-training, pre-grooming. Because wouldn't we all say that child, that value of that child, simply enough, just as he is or just as she is? So where and how have we come to believe differently? We have to get back to that place. And again, it's not a place of arrogance, and it's not a place of comparative relativity of, because I'm enough, I'm better than you. No, it's not comparative and it's not relative. And when we can come from a centered self that is actually how we show up better for others and have compassion and self and awareness and grace for others, so that we lift each other up. It's not a competition. It's not comparative. It's not relative. But boy, is it easier when we can come from a place of self-compassion, self-assuredness, self-belief. Because then we know how, because we've done the work in ourselves, we know how to lift others up. And we can recognize when others might be having their own limiting beliefs. And that's how we can lend our belief in them. It has to come from a place, though. You cannot pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
And how much easier it is to overflow to others when that cup is filled. It's all there. It's already been revealed. It's there. One just has to realize it. How's that?
It literally, I was going to talk about the part about how we can uplift others in the process, and then you segued beautifully right into it. And so I'm speechless as I'm talking. I'm speechless, and I think that's where we cap this episode.
Let's cap that episode. Everybody practice. Be aware. Be mindful of what are the thoughts you're thinking, and do I frequently think these thoughts? And if I frequently think these thoughts and therefore believe it, how's that serving me? How's that serving you when you think those thoughts and have those negative beliefs? And then realize, for the moment, for now, you might not be where you want to be yet, but move that boat forward. It's not about the wake. It's not about what you believed in the past, and it's not about what has happened in the past.
Amen.
And I'm wearing red lipstick, everybody.
Yes, she is.
If you're not on YouTube, talk about pushing the edges of comfort zone, but let's do it.
Yeah.
I love you. Love everybody.
Love you.
Mwah. Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.